Hey guys, it's Yuta. So this is yet another philosophical discussion of contemporary culture of Japan. Today, we're going to talk about a culturally sophisticated anime called Interspecies Reviewers. In this anime, a group of cultured warriors go on an anthropological fieldwork project to research the sexuality of different species and write field reports. In other words, they write reviews of brothels featuring different Isekai species. This anime is so culturally sophisticated that a lot of TV stations decided to drop it. Funimation also removed the anime from their streaming website. And if you hear this, you might think this is just a hentai misclassified as an anime. But if you take a look at the reviews, it actually has a pretty decent rating. On Amazon Prime, it has 3.9 stars, which isn't particularly high, but it's not particularly low either. So it seems like we have a lot of men of culture in Japan. But just for the sake of comparison, Higehiro has 3.5 stars, and Kanokari has 4.3 stars. It's interesting that this anime is less controversial than Higehiro, which I discussed in another video. One of the good things about this anime is everybody is clear about their intentions. Sex is consensual and legal. This reviewer says, I think it's a shame to call this show for men when I'm also enjoying it as a woman. Although I'm a bit tired of the random fan service scenes that are so common in anime these days, I'm okay with this one since the scenes make sense in the context of the story. Although the story is about brothels, the men aren't forcing the women or being rough. Since the women call themselves succubi, they're definitely not reluctant. Because of this, it's sexual but not disgusting or scary. Personally, I'd say it's a sex comedy you can watch without feeling uncomfortable. It's true that this anime has a very positive vibe. It's also interesting that she mentioned fan service where anime introduce sexual scenes or images out of context when they seem unnecessary, and a lot of anime fans don't like them. But in this anime, sexual scenes perfectly make sense in the context of the story. Another reviewer says, I've never seen an anime that uses the Isekai otherworld trope so well. Isekai shows so far usually only tackle the struggles between races and the countries that emerge from them. This is something that can be done in other genres. However, the diversity here is a perfect fit for this Isekai story with all sorts of species in it. And it's true, Isekai is an essential part of this story since it's about imaginary species. There's so many reviews, but I only choose appropriate parts for YouTube. But if you want to see more dirty, inappropriate reviews, you need to learn Japanese. And if you want to learn Japanese with me, I will teach you the kind of Japanese that real-life Japanese people today actually speak. So click the link in the description. Anyway, the brothels in this anime are primarily for male customers, but it's also implied that there are places for women and there are places where they change their biological sex. This person says, must be nice to have brothels that are open for women too. Casual sex change? Sounds great. If only anti-pregnancy magic circles existed in real life, women could probably have sex all they want like this. This is another good point. Changing your biological sex temporarily and being completely protected against STIs and pregnancy is only possible in this imaginary world, unfortunately. And we could definitely enjoy sex more if we didn't have to worry about these things. But of course, because of the nature of this anime, negative reviews are inevitable. This person says, people rate schools, restaurants, and movies and denigrate them. It makes me want to puke that they rate diverse women or females with a personality as products in terms of sexual and consumable value. There are a few things I want to say about this. First of all, they aren't necessarily reviewing women. They're mostly reviewing their places. And also, when somebody provides services, It's not unusual to write reviews. For example, people review medical doctors. I'm not sure if this person thinks that sexual workers are fundamentally different from medical doctors in terms of exchanging services for money. But of course, a lot of people are simply uncomfortable with different sexual expressions. This person says, "This work is the peak of the vileness of Japanese men who can only think with their genitals. Distributing, producing such a thing itself shows the hell of women living in this country. Why don't you make a show where only men are sexually consumed?" Now it seems like this person is pretty ignorant. First of all genders can be interested in consuming sexual content. We actually have a lot of sexual content primarily catering for women such as BL or yaoi, where men are very sexualized. If you go to a bookshop in Japan, you have a section dedicated to this stuff. This person thinks that there's something Japanese about this, but people all over the world are interested in our very cultured content. But there are always people who are worried how other countries think of Japan. This one writes, "I don't want this kind of anime to become a hot topic and make people think Japanese culture is all about hentai. I only want to see full-fledged hentai within the domain of hentai." But I don't think Japanese people should worry about that. Lots of people in the world have done their own research, so they know what's up. Having said that, most of the reviews are positive. A lot of people watched this anime because everyone was talking about it. They didn't expect much and think it would be just a anime for cultured people who definitely watched them for the story. But they were pleasantly surprised because it's actually a good anime. This one says, "I thought this was just going to be weird, but it was pretty good as a comedy and satire. The reviewers spell out their desires without restraint. It was also interesting to see the diversity of values among different species." I would say this anime definitely isn't a hentai. The main purpose of hentai is to make people sexually aroused. But this anime is more about showcasing different sexual tastes and services. You can actually watch this anime for the story. This person says, "Even though the girls in this anime are cute and hot, I didn't really get any sexual feelings when watching it. Instead, it felt refreshing, like the one you get after sweating due to playing sports." I think one of the reasons why this anime is not very arousing for many people is because it has a lot of comedy in it. It feels more like talking about sex with your friends than actually having sex. And that's part of the fun in this story. This reviewer says, one reviewer mentioned that they felt like crying after hearing the lines, "Skebe ga daisuki, I love sexual stuff," that came right after the opening's start. I think this is the essence of the positive opinions and the anime's biggest attraction. Sex is the universal language among men. There's no man out there who's not interested or doesn't want to get involved with it. Despite this, the world looks at us with cold eyes and men are aware of this. This is why men get together at bars and talk about sex in secret. I believe this show had such a huge response due to there being no work out there that boldly delves into such topics and even reviews them openly. I think everybody just wants to openly talk about the fun side of sex. I only partially agree with him because he seems to think that it's primarily just men who want to talk about sex, which isn't true at all. Many people want to talk about sex regardless of their gender identity. And many of those who don't want to talk about, they might think about it. If we weren't interested in sex, we wouldn't have existed in the first place. So sex is something fundamental to our existence. At the same time, it's also true that a lot of people don't have the opportunity to talk about sex openly, and that might be part of the reason why this anime feels so refreshing. But when it comes to if it's appropriate for TV, we have different opinions. This person says, I've bought, read, and loved the manga source material and Amahara's other works. What disappoints me the most are the people who are so upset about the cancellation. Aren't they misunderstanding the freedom of expression? A show that scores prostitutes even late at night shouldn't be on TV. Let's not get carried away with the idea that the world should recognize our hobbies. Isn't it enough to just enjoy them away from the eyes of society? So some people think like that, but other people think that this kind of thing should be on TV. This person says, I'd like to give a shout out to all the people involved in choosing this work to be animated and broadcasted in this age where everything is restricted and suppressed. And I also think that this anime is pretty good in terms of sexual expressions. For the most part, sex is consensual, legal, and people respect each other. But there's one thing that's clearly not appropriate, and that's sexually harassing Marjorie. This reviewer says, Stunk and its friends frequently sexually harass Marjorie, but it's all good after Marjorie hits them in return. This would never be okay in real life. We are at a time when groping and sexual harassment are still rampant. Airing sequences like this again and again on TV is too insensitive towards women, and also shows a lack of concern. I like this show, so it's a shame it has become frowned upon by the public. And that's totally true. This anime would have been much better if they were more respectful towards Marjorie. But apart from that, I think this anime is overly pretty decent and I was pleasantly surprised. Another thing I liked about this anime is how they portray different kinks and fetishes positively, which is rare for an anime. I remember there's a fetish of watching someone laying an egg. I think this is a made-up fetish, but it's very believable. And I also like how the characters are generally respectful of other people's taste, even if they don't necessarily understand. It's just too bad that this anime isn't legally accessible in many countries. In Japan, it's pretty easy to find it on a streaming website. So you can totally watch it if you speak Japanese. But if you don't, I will teach you the kind of Japanese the real-life Japanese people today actually speak, which can be different from the kind of Japanese that textbooks and apps teach you because they can be unnatural and outdated. So click the link and subscribe to my email group, Japanese with Yuta. Alright, see you guys soon. Ciao, ciao!